One of the things I am most proud of this year, 2024, is coaching an Oxford graduate. So today is the 19th of December, 2024, and it is now 13 days until the new year, 2025. And I thought I would share a snippet or a section or a summary of some of my professional experience. I say professional experience, even though this particular area of my life has been deeply personal, but it has been the platform from which I've been able to leverage into other things. So back when I was 18, I became a private tutor. I was working with teenagers, those who were 15 and 16 years old, with their GCSE mathematics here in the UK. It's a UK qualification. And I was traveling to their homes in order to do these sessions. I was a university student, so I was in my first year. And so I would finish a lecture or finish my day of lectures, jump on a bus from the city centre in Birmingham to my client, my student's home, and have a 2-hour session approximately, travel back, and then do my assignments, go to bed, and then repeat that the next day. So I was doing that multiple times a week for just under a handful of students, being paid by either cash or check. And then that continued into my second year of uni, and it just so happened that it aligned with them being in year 11, taking their exams. So I had year 10 students when I started, year 11 students by the time I got to the end of my second year. So that when I was then going for my year abroad in my third year, where I lived in Mexico for 12 months, I didn't have to worry about leaving any students hanging, because I wouldn't necessarily be able to travel to do those tutoring sessions. Then when I came back from Mexico, I didn't pick up my tutoring straight away, but I did go into schools and do CV writing practice, personal statement writing practice, confidence building in young people. This was across different age groups, particularly in secondary school. So those from year 7 right through to year 13, so aged 11 right through to age 18. And I really found my groove with that. I really started to enjoy it, and really working with even more young people than I was working with before. So I did that throughout my final year of university, and then I graduated in the summer of 2016. And moving back home after living on campus for my university years, and I got into corporate governance. So I did a corporate governance course for young people aged 21 to 35, and I was 22 going on 23 years old at the time. And so I took an exam for that course in the February of 2017, and that's when I got my first virtual tutoring student. Her name was also Olivia, and she was 15 years old, and she needed help with her mathematics, her GCSE mathematics. And I was tutoring with no desk. Like, I didn't have enough funds to have a full setup like I do now at home, at my mom's home in my bedroom. So my desk was a stool and my seat was the floor. So I literally started from the ground. And I started virtually tutoring because it would allow me to work with anyone across the country, so that there was no sense of geographical restriction or even cost, because the cost of traveling is not cheap. So I started virtually tutoring so that I can earn some income, but also I could pack my diary, because I prayed for being able to know what the extent of my capacity was. How many students could I take on? How many tutoring sessions could I do? How far could I really stretch myself? And so I started with 15-year-old Olivia, not me, my student. And then I started to pick up students left, right, and center. I was being recommended to people. People were starting to find out more about what I was doing and everything, or they were telling their friends, or there was someone who I hold dear to me, who she had 2 daughters, and neither of them were my students yet, but she had recommended me because she knew me from the work that I did in schools with the confidence building and the CV writing and stuff, all that training I provided to young people during my final year. She knew me from there, and she recommended me to someone in her local area because her daughter needed some support. And then it wasn't until after I started with that friend's daughter that her own daughters, the person who recommended me, then became my tutoring clients for probably the year later, or in the years later, because it was a sister and a daughter and a younger sister. And so there was like a bit of a time lapse between when I started with the younger sister. That student, that young girl, that was the daughter of a neighbor to the person who recommended me, knowing me from my year of doing work in schools, is the student I still have today. So I would say the student I have today was probably the first client I got where it was purely based on a recommendation from someone who had seen me work with young people in classrooms, in assembly halls, in school buildings. She was 15 when I started with her in 2017, and she was in the latter stages of her year 10 year, so the year before she takes her final exams for GCSEs. And I've had her ever since. We started off as, she started off as my maths tutoring client, and I took her to the end of her GCSEs, and then she wanted to continue working with me, but she wasn't doing maths at A level, which is the qualification you do in the UK when you're in year 12 and year 13, so when you're 16 to 18, so post-16 education. But she was doing languages, she was doing French and other subjects, I think French, biology, and maybe history. If not history, then an English, but definitely French. And she knew that I offered Spanish tutoring sessions, so she picked up Spanish with me because she had learned Spanish when she was younger, but hadn't been able to learn it formally in school, but she wanted to still have that language flair. And so she asked me if I would take her on, if I would keep her on, but switch from maths, obviously, because she was finished with that, to Spanish. And I said, of course, because I've worked with you for like 18 months, going on 2 years now, and you're a brilliant student and a brilliant individual. So of course I'd work with you. I love people who are eager to learn something, learn to develop, to explore. And so we started doing Spanish work, and so we did that throughout her A levels, so that she had a language alongside what she was learning more formally. And then she got her A level results. And not only did she get her A level results, she was successful in getting a place at Oxford University. And I had supported her with her personal statement writing, because once you're a student of mine, it's hard for me to say no to you. So if I'm working with you on a subject, then if you ask me or tell me that you're applying for jobs, or you need a referee, or you need help with your personal statement, or you need help with this application, I'm likely to build in time, capacity, energy to be able to support. So when she told me what university she was applying to, I was like, okay, let's go for it. Let's do this. And then she got a place at Oxford University to do languages. And once she started, it was like a whole experience, because having been educated at a grammar school myself, I know of students, of young people, of individuals who have applied to Oxford and Cambridge. And I was close to at one point, but then I said no, it didn't feel aligned to me, so I didn't submit an application, and I'm very happy with the path that I chose because it has served me really, really well. So yeah, it was just really interesting to experience Oxford through the lens of an actual student there, and being with her from the beginning. And then her second year, she had to do a placement year abroad, a study placement. And I just remember how anxious she was of that experience. I knew she was way beyond capable, but she didn't necessarily have that confidence in herself or that view of herself, but she did it anyway. And so I supported her throughout that year because her mom wanted to keep me as a constant connection to back home, and also seeing her as a student. So it's not that I'm one of her friends or one of her family members or someone who is on the course with her or traveling with her, but I'm someone who has known her since she was 15, and now she's living in a foreign country at the age of like 19, and just ensuring that she's well cared for mentally and academically, and emotionally. Someone who knows her enough, but it's not mom or dad or a friend who's in the same age group. And so it was amazing to see her blossom throughout that year and then come back so transformed. Because when you are the person, because I've lived abroad, I worked abroad, but I've lived abroad. When you are the person, you don't necessarily see the changes in you because you are with you all the time. It's the people who are outside of you but still within your circle who see the changes. So I could see how her confidence was building and how her self-assurance was strengthening. It was just magical to experience. And I would often tell her, like, I am definitely someone who affirms others, and I really enjoyed telling her. Sometimes it would make her uncomfortable, but it was to get her comfortable with knowing these true things about herself. She's just amazing individual. And so she came back and she had her third year, and then she had her fourth year, and each year has come with its own challenges and its own set of barriers, or whether perceived or actual, or just the things that she's facing and experiencing from living in her own place with shared housing and assignments and deadlines and communication experiences from different people and everything like that. And then this year it was road to graduation. She had her final dissertations to do, and assignments and the load of that. And so this year I've seen her at some low point. We would come on a call because we now have sessions monthly, and it transformed from Spanish to like this coaching, because especially during that year abroad, she needed more coaching and support rather than focus on an explicit subject matter. So we still did Spanish, but I feel like Spanish was like a vehicle, like a transitionary period to make it tangible to a student. I went in with the subject, but there was so much more that I did. So even when I had teenagers and I was doing maths tutoring for 7, 8, 9 years and doing 17 to 20 tutoring sessions a week, I would go in as a maths tutor, but I would support the student holistically. So that's why it just morphed into coaching with this particular student or this particular client. And we did less and less Spanish and more conversation and engagement and self-awareness and understanding and strategic planning and all this kind of stuff and balancing. And yeah, so she was sharing with me the weight that she was feeling. And I remember this one call where as soon as we came on, I was like, we cannot talk about academia today. We cannot talk about assignments. We cannot talk about exams. We cannot talk about reading lists. We cannot talk about lecturers. We cannot talk, because I could see it on her. She was almost done. And she's cried occasionally in my sessions, just from the buildup of emotion, and just holding space for her to be able to be vulnerable and to express herself freely and authentically. I see that as a privilege, as a blessing, to be able to be a safe space for someone to be their rawest self. And so we talked about so many other things. We talked about the last time she went out with friends. We talked about the last time she ate a solid meal. We talked about the last time she went home to spend some time with her family in her safe space with her mom and her sister and her dad. And we talked about everything else but university. And by the end of the session, she was laughing, she was smiling, she was lighter. Not to say that all the things she had to do had disappeared, but just to remind her that there really is more to life as a student than being a student. You are a human being first, and then you are everything else that comes with your place in life. And so that session I remember vividly, and that was earlier in the year, top end of the year, first quarter of the year. Then the middle of the year, that's when she graduates. And then as of September, she's a master's student. She's in her year of her master's degree. And I am so proud of her. And so yesterday, when we had our monthly session and we talked about a wall that she's now facing, and we talked about it so much because she came in the session saying, I don't know what to do. She has this assignment to write. She's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm doing. But then she would give me all the things that she's been doing, the things that she's read and the decisions that she's made and the evaluations that she's been able to achieve and the assessments, and like, okay, I can read this, or I can do this, or I can consider that, or I've had this conversation, all of this. And I said, look at you. You have just told me that you don't know what to do. You don't know what you're doing. And yet you've also, in the same breath, given me abundance of things that you've done. And she had no idea that she could see herself that way. I said, the only reason why I'm able to talk and give you some ideas, some tools on how you can navigate the next section of this process, this assignment process, is because of everything you've already done and everything you've told me. Because I don't know this subject matter. You are the expert. You are the expert. And yet you've told me stuff so that I could help you zoom out and think of, okay, what's the next strategic step forward? And so I said to her, this is your wall. This is your next wall. I said 12 months ago, your wall was not knowing what you're going to do next, whether you're going to do a master's, whether you're going to go into employment. And even if you were considering your master's, you didn't know what university you would do it at, and you didn't know what your focus would be and all this kind of stuff. You were just in the application process or the processing process. And you overcame it because here you are in your master's at Oxford. So this is just another wall. And you have faced many walls before. So that means this wall you can face. All you're going to think about is the individual bricks. Do you go over it? Do you climb under? Do you go round? What do you do to face this wall? Do you punch through it? This is your wall. But it's not the first time you faced a wall. And so I just thought it was just really necessary to share that. My longest running student, who I have to say she is a client within herself at this point. My longest running student has taught me so much, and I am so proud of her. And I am so grateful for her. And I tell her this all the time. Like, I actually feel like I've grown up with you. You have grown magnificently. You have grown magnificently. And with so much effort. I won't even take it away from you by saying effortless. She has poured in so much effort. And she has trusted the process. And I just feel so privileged and so blessed and so grateful and so appreciative of being someone who is able to not only witness it, but walk alongside her, support her. I tell her all the time, any day, anytime, you can contact me if you need me. Because as much she gets from me, I receive so much from her just by hearing what she's doing and just being so amazed at what she's achieved. And so honestly, this is definitely a tribute to that student. She knows who she is if ever she comes across this video randomly. But honestly, it's such a wow factor to be able to coach, mentor, teach, educate, support, uplift, encourage, empower, inspire anyone. And all of my students, I hold with great honor. I cherish with great honor. And so that is what I wanted to share today on this countdown, because this countdown is a reflection of 2024. And that was a big part of my 2024. Huge. So I hope that gives you a bit more insight into my backstory, or some of my backstory, how I became a tutor and what that journey was like. I had my last tutoring session for maths for those who were in GCSEs and A-levels last June. 2023 was the last year I did a tutoring session. So I'm purely in coaching now, but because I'm a school governor, because that corporate governance course led me to becoming proactive in education governance in the same year, in 2017. So 2017 was a very pivotal year for me. And that's why when the pandemic hit in 2020, virtual was already part of my practice for 3 years prior. I didn't become a virtual tutor because we couldn't travel or because we couldn't engage in person. I was doing it 3 years before that became something that everyone else had to adjust to. So I just thought it was very important to share that particular reflection that I've had. I think it came to me this morning that that's what I talk about. But if you'd like to watch more of my content, engage more with me, then please like, comment and subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you do not miss an upload. And I appreciate you all.